Hey, Sateniko here once again for God Loves Comics, and this is essentially part 2 of my analysis of Star Wars 38. The first part was a short video just about Michael Golden's cover, and now we're going to dive headfirst into Golden and Terry Austin's artwork, aided and abetted by Archie Goodwin's excellent script. And here we have page 1. As you can see, the story was written by the always solid Archie Goodwin, who is usually called on for Marvel's big adaptations, including all 3 initial Star Wars, as well as Blade Runner, all of which were illustrated by the incredible Al Williamson. Page 1 is sort of a typical Star Wars establishing shot with TIE fighters blasting at rebel starships, and you feel like much of this was probably left to the technical pens of Terry Austin. What's noteworthy here in the credits is that Michael Golden, much like Barry Windsor Smith, colors his own work here, and it shows. On page 2, Golden unifies the page with this pink hue, as does Austin with his trademark stippling and zipatone. It's easy to underestimate how unique Golden's figures are during this period when Western exposure to manga was mostly limited to Akira. But his Luke and especially his Leia have manga notes, and everything from the eyes to the mouths to the melodrama of their postures. If there's a complaint, it's that the Imperial pilot being the same color of the TIE fighter framework blends in so well that it's all too easy to overlook him. Of course, Golden and Austin draw the instrument panels and cosmic action with typical precision but also imagination. Page 3 features an incredibly bold color choice here with this red and pink dominant first panel. The big splashes of red could almost look like blood, but understanding the action and the combination with the pink from the prior panel just clarifies an amplification of the action. The facial expressions again owe to manga, particularly Luke's this time, while Leia appears to be orgasming. The remaining panels look a bit spare and rushed, but effectively tell the story, and Golden keeps his unified color scheme with his hot pink console buttons against the azure structure. By page 4, you get the big reveal of the amorphous green giant monster / organic spaceship, which would surely be a dull lumpen blob even if Jack Kirby were drawing it. Maybe especially if Jack were drawing it. But Golden does his best to make it interesting. He draws it like a cluster of grapes. It also introduces the other dominant color in the issue, green. The reaction close-up on Luke here is classic Golden, the intense expressiveness of manga, but grounded by enough American cartoon realism to not look comedically over the top. The same can't quite be said for panel 2 on page 5, where Golden goes all in on his manga influence with the giant eyes and open mouths. But again, it's hugely effective with the characters actually responding appropriately to the action at hand, instead of looking blasé and disconnected. The bottom of the page inserts a couple of nice Akira-esque, or is it Mobius, shoe robots almost as an afterthought, but they look more inventive than George Lucas's rolling trash compactor bots. Page 6 is just a beautiful page to look at. So much simple clarity and yet so much variety in terms of color and composition. We have a perfectly symmetrical 6-panel grid bisected by one long borderless panel with laughter effects underlaid behind Luke and Leia. Golden cheekily changes the colors of the last 5 letters to a darker blue, perhaps to emphasize the laughter getting louder, or darker. Golden goes with matching green backgrounds for both Luke and Leia, each on opposite sides of the page. It gives him a respite from drawing any backgrounds, but continues the emphasis of his color scheme, with the green being the same color as the giant spaceship creature. Luke and Leia's more natural facial expressions work great here. With the bottom 3 panels, Golden balances the peach, orange, and greens of the 2 end panels with almost a pure black and white panel with another of Austin's zipatone patterns. The tiny drawing of Luke falling is actually beautifully done, and Golden, thinking about every element, adds a faint yellow wash to the jagged outline of the word balloon, lending more urgency. With page 7, we see that Goodwin's dialogue continues to be stellar, particularly given that this is essentially a filler issue. More lovely art from Golden and Austin. You see another one of Austin's classic zips as background for Leia's profile here. Then at the bottom of the page, we get a different zip design as a backdrop for Luke's close-up and some dramatic lighting for the left side of his face. On page 8, Golden delivers on a fine line saber duel, and I think all these years I had overlooked the distinct manga influence in the 4 vertical panels across the bottom. Luke's mouth, spiky hair, and arched eyebrows in the second of those vertical panels could easily be mistaken for Dragon Ball Z. On page 9, the fight continues. A page like this is a testament to Terry Austin's brilliance. He loves complex crosshatches and zipatone textures, but he always knows when to dial it down and not fatigue the eye. For that bottom panel close-up on Luke, Austin leaves it blank. Of course, this may have also been Golden's request, so that it pops against the clean white background. And the next panel is just a chunky crosshatch done by hand. By page 10, Austin keeps it simple, or simpler yet again, so as not to conflict with either the shattering debris nor the speed lines. And Michael Golden makes Luke and Leia's figures dynamic and interesting in each of the 8 panels. He imbues them with a tremendous sense of motion and impact, and in the lone close-up at the center page in panel 4, Golden draws Luke with the most fierce look of determination I've ever seen in an illustration of the character. It's all so great from one panel to the next that it's easy to absorb the page and hurry on without appreciating how exceptional every single panel truly is on this page. And here we get yet another extraordinary sequence from Golden and Austin. When Carrie Fisher died in 2016, I posted the top 9 panels of this page on the Facebook group just because the grasping hands and losing the grip seemed so poignant, as if she had been let go. In Original Artifacts, I always talk about how drawing great hands just seems like the calling card of accomplished comics artists, and Golden draws these so well he must have been studying as Bern Hogarth. And again, Golden's colors. From red to pale orange to the peach traditionally used for white flesh, symbolizing a heated moment, to the moment of human frailty and failure. If there's a flaw here, it comes only with the inclusion of the bottom 2 panels that strip the page of its dramatic tease. We know Leia's going to survive, but at least make us wait until the following page, or 2 if you need to insert a Bubblegum ad. Hard to know whether this was Golden's storytelling glitch using the Marvel method or Archie Goodwin's, but it's a little anticlimactic. Nevertheless, the very next page is yet again exquisite. This reddish clay brown color of the figures in the first panel, set against the green background, is a color scheme that you rarely if ever see, and yet it works so well. And Golden beautifully offsets his large center panel with a framework of machinery and organic roots to serve as a border for the pale blue inset panel. It's clear that he blew up the images of Luke and Leia from the main panel and pasted it here as it is line perfect with the original. The sort of junkyard jalopy drawing of the ship's pilot, now integrated with the ship, is implacably weird and well done, as is the sad visage of the pilot through his helmet in the bottom panel. Again, it cannot be overstated how beautiful Golden's palette of greens, blues, browns, and whites are on the page. By the next page, Goodwin, Golden, and Austin are in such a groove that each page seems to top its predecessor. Decades before Saga would send its intrepid family off into an interstellar adventure in a flying tree, we see this first panel where the narrator's flying goiter is destroying a giant spaceship mushroom. Panel 2 again uses the hotter, more aggressive colors to indicate death and pain, and it would be easy to overlook the female corpse clutching her dead baby, which might have skated close to the edge for the Comics Code but probably went unnoticed. The swirl of cosmic crackle works perfectly for the panels of Luke and Leia looking into space, as does Golden's subtle but dramatic lighting. Next, we're treated to a magnificent overhead shot of the deck of the Imperial cruiser, which looks as good as any interior shot from the movies. And again, Golden just makes this crazily brave choice to cast the deck in a pale and hot pink with Austin's zipatones to further sell the lighting, and it works brilliantly. As does the last panel where Golden goes black and white to emphasize the flash of the explosion, but adds this very pale yellow wash just as he did on the word balloon earlier. He also chooses to draw the panel borders this time, where other times, like above, he leaves them completely open, but he draws the border with a series of broken lines just to hammer the impact home even more, and yet almost subliminally. On the following page, the stark reds emphasize the violent mechanized tenor of the Empire lashing out against the soothing organic greens of the spaceship, which has gone from unintentional villain to sympathetic victim who was all along just seeking to play space games to mitigate it and its pilot's boredom. But the organic spaceship, which has defeated all comers over a vast swath of time, is anything but defenseless. It unleashes antimatter pods, which Golden draws as a emaciated Rorschach test, and obliterates the Imperial cruiser and its demonically red, sweaty-faced crew. The last panel is again plaintively beautiful and calm, moments after the pilot has casually unleashed, quote, instant disintegration, unquote. And finally, Golden and Austin wrap up Goodwin's excellent story with the blues, greens, and yes, even the pinks that of course throughout the entire tale, giving it a very strong sense of being exactly what it is, a single self-contained issue out of continuity in the Star Wars run. The final panels are all vertical and cleverly get slimmer to indicate the growing distance of the Void ship as it vanishes into outer space. With the minor exception of Leia looking a little beefier than usual, it is like the rest of the issue, exquisitely drawn, inked, colored, and written. This issue was one of the most effective you'll ever find in the mainstream at using color to aid and advance the story at hand. Why Michael Golden was never given the reins for a longer run of Star Wars is forever a mystery. Yes, he was notoriously slow, but he managed a few incredible years on Micronauts, and surely the healthy page rates on Star Wars might have kept him going. However, there is the sense of the squeaky wheels getting the grease, so maybe it was the loud squeals of Howard Chaykin who landed the initial gig, and the extensive and formidable resume of Carmine Infantino that secured it after that. Regardless, Star Wars 38 is the single most beautiful issue of the entire run, with the exception of one artist's appearance in the franchise. The bold and exciting title lettering at the bottom of the page indicates exactly who that artist was: Al Williamson.